We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. This is a live show. We do take in all your questions. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask, send them in via the WhatsApp, the email address. You can give us a call live in the studio, 0203-515-0199. Or alternatively, if you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your questions in the comment section and inshallah the technical team will be able to send them to me and we'll be able to discuss and answer all your queries. I'm your host, Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Maash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing this evening, Sheikhna?
Alhamdulillah, fine.
MashaAllah. Sheikhna, before we begin, we'd like to send our congratulations to the Imam of our time and also the Muslim Ummah on the auspicious occasion of the birthdays of Shabaniya. We have Imam Hussein alayhi salam's birthday, we have Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam's birthday, we have Imam Sajjad alayhi salam's birthday as well, all consecutively one after the other. It's a big joyous celebration for us Shia. Sheikh, would you like to have a couple of words on these heroic and these magical personalities that we revere so much and that we honor by celebrating their birthdays?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. أسعد الله أيامكم, and may Allah bless the mu'mineen and the mu'minat on these great days and nights, a holy month like Sha'ban and the forthcoming month of Ramadan as well, filled with occasions, celebrations. Such a great event today, Mawlid Imam Hussein Salamullah alayhi, and tomorrow Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam as well, and after tomorrow the Mawlid of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. Of course, in the hadith we have with regards to Imam Hussein Salamullah alayhi that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi has stated that Hussein minni wa ana min Hussein ahabba Allah man ahabba Husseina. Hussein is part of him and part of Hussein. Allah loves the one loves Hussein alayhi salam. This connection between the prophethood and the imam, such a great connection and link that would of course has a great meanings in terms of delivering the message of Allah Azza wa Jal through the lineage of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So a great connection, a great attachment from Rasulullah to Imam Hussein and from Imam Hussein to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the one who would deliver Ahkam Allah Azza wa Jal and the message of Allah Azza wa Jal through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is Imam Hussein salamullah alayhi and his offspring as well. So yes, and we have the birth of Al-Abbas salamullah alayhi, Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam, in which Imam Ali alayhi salam he went and he chose the right woman to give birth to a child who will be supporter of Al-Hussein alayhi salam on the day of Ashura. لينصر ولدي الحسين في يوم كربلاء. That was the aim of creating Abbas alayhi salam, to be here to support Imam Hussein salamullah alayhi. And of course Imam Sajjad alayhi salam as well, the Zayn al-Abidin, the beauty of the worshippers, Sayyid al-Sajidin, the master of the prostration and sujood. Of course the Imam Sajjad also has a great means of teaching disciples and students and nurturing those individuals to spread the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the world by his narrations, by his sermons, by his the ad'iyah that in which was received to us. So the Imam alayhi salam had a great legacy of teaching people how to invoke Allah Azza wa Jal through ad'iyah, through devotion, through tawassul Allah Azza wa Jal, using those ad'iyah, in which he left also Sahifa Sajjadiyah, this great means of a book in which filled with lessons, and the one can gain happiness and felicity in this dunya and the akhirah by following those great individuals.
Ahsan, thank you very much, Sheikhna. Just a quick reminder to all our viewers that if you have a question that you'd like to send onto the show, please send them in via the WhatsApp, the email address, give us a call, or if you're watching on Facebook Live or YouTube, just put it in the comment section, and inshallah the technical team will be able to send it to me on my nice little iPad here, and inshallah I'll be able to ask the Sheikh and we'll be able to discuss and answer your questions. Sheikh, now let's kick off with question 1, which is, if a charitable organization distributes boxes for collection, if a charitable organization distributes boxes for collecting money to pay the poor, is it permissible for a person to open the box and pay the money to a specific poor without the permission from the organization? His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani has a fatwa on this. What is his opinion?
Yes, the Sayyid mentions that opening the box is problematic. These boxes are not owned by yourself. There's someone else who owns these boxes, and the aim of giving the box is to put money specifically for this organization, this charity organization. So the money should go to this specific organization. Thus, permission is required if you want to, claim the money yourself for your own projects, charitable projects, for example, orphans and so forth. You have to ask permission from the owners of the box, otherwise you can't use.
Sheikh, do we have to boycott people who are sinners and refrain from meeting and talking to them?
There's a narration by Imam Amir al-Mu'minin Ali alayhi salam. He states with this regard, Al-Muslimu mir'atu akhih. A Muslim individual is a mirror to the other Muslim. As you see yourself in the mirror, you try to beautify yourself in the mirror. Also, other Muslims are like your mirror, in which you would see yourself, your beauty in them. فَإِذَا رَأَيْتُم مِّنْ أَخِيكُمْ هَفْوَةً. Thus, if you see a fault in your brother Muslim, some kind of sin, mistakes, and so forth, فَلَا تَكُونُوا عَلَيْهِ. Don't be against him. وَكُونُوا لَهُ كَنَفْسِهِ لِنَفْسِهِ. And be with him as if it's yourself. Be with him, support him, guide him. فَأَرْشِدُوهُ. So guide him. وَانصَحُوهُ. Advise him. وَتَرْفَقُوا بِهِ. And be kind to him. This is the sifat and the features of mu'min, of Muslim. That you won't straight away go and tell off this individual in a harsh way that you did wrong, Allah will punish you, such and such. No, we try to initially use the wisdom, بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة. We use the wisdom and the right words and the nice words in order to attract them towards piety, towards taqwa Allah Azza wa Jal.
Sheikh, a question coming in from YouTube. Assalamu alaikum. Congratulations on the birth of the 3 moons. Sheikh, with regards to hygiene, can one wear perfume like oud to majlis? How important is grooming? Shukran.
A great emphasis is made on the one who would wear perfume, in which
especially for salah, isn't it?
Exactly, for salah, thawab will be muda'af, doubled. So the one should use the perfume as much as they can for all purposes. Well, except if it's to do with ladies who would go out, for example. Some ulama would avoid it. Some would say if it's an intention to attract the opposite gender, it's haram, and so forth.
Shaykh, from the WhatsApp, how can we say our obligatory prayers in an aircraft, especially if we do not know the direction of the Qibla, taking into consideration the instability of the floor because the plane is in motion?
Well, initially, if you have time, when you arrive in your destination, then you have to wait. When you arrive there, you pray in the airport, in the arrivals, for example. Otherwise, if the salah would be qada, by the time the airplane lands, then of course, you have to pray on the airplane. Try your best to, usually you have some times in which the airplane is stable, stand towards the Qibla, ask the pilot or the cabin crew, for example, for the direction of the Qibla, for example. Other means in which you can define the Qibla motionlessness, stability. Try your best to achieve that for the salah.
Very well. Sheikh, how do we perform the iltimasi or ghusl by immersion?
Well, another type of ghusl that the one can perform is to dive inside the water. And you have to make sure all your body is inside the water. You make the intention that 1 second intention would purify your body eventually. That 1 or 2 seconds would make the body tahir in this case. So yeah, it has to be all done in one time. Then you have the ghusl has been achieved in this case. The iltimasi, of course.
I was taught in Hausa that there's two types, iltimasi wise. There's one where you'd go into the water, maybe you'd hold one of your body parts out, make the niyyah, and then you submerge yourself. And there's one when you're walking in, apparently, slowly as the water comes, there's one.
And overall, you have to be inside the water,
fully
immersed, your body covered with water, and have the intention of the ghusl, that's it.
Sheikh, what is the evidence for the prohibition of beer?
Yes, we have something called alcohol, like wine and so forth, and we have the beer. In the hadith, they also mention about the prohibition and the najasa of the beer. We have a hadith in which it says they call the beer in Arabic fuqa'. So the hadith says al-fuqa'u khamrun istasgharahu an-nas. The beer is actually an alcohol, type of alcohol in which people took it lightly, because it seems to be there are people who used to drink it from the Muslim community. That this is not alcohol, this is just a malted water and so forth. So it should be fine from the wheat, from the barley. It should be fine, it's not haram. So Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam said no, this is also alcohol, part of the alcohol, and it's forbidden. Another hadith عن الوشاء قال كتبت إليه يعني الرضا عليه السلام. Al-Washa, one of the Imams of Rida alayhi salam, companion, he wrote to the Imam, he sent a letter asking about the hukum and the rulings of the beer, al-fuqa'. So the Imam wrote back فكتب عليه السلام about the beer, the hukum of the beer. He said حرام وهو خمر. It is haram, forbidden, and it is alcohol. So another type of alcohol is actually beer. So it's forbidden for the Muslim to drink it.
Sheikh, questions coming in from WhatsApp, I believe. Here we go. Is it permissible to use Saham Imam? I think that's the khums for the Imam in charitable projects while there are tens of thousands of believers who are in need of bread and clothing, etc.
You need the permission from your marja' to be able to use this khumus, and usually they would give. Usually, if you have such a project, they would actually give you the ijaza, at least half of the khumus for the purpose of the poor individuals.
Another one on Saham Imam. Can you give out Saham Imam as a donation to a hospital that totally runs on charitable donations and is a non-profit making organization? Can I give my Saham Imam to a local mosque for its reconstruction and renovation?
Again, same answer. If you ask the ijaza and the permission from your marja', they would definitely give at least half of it. If not all, depends on the type of the project you have for the purpose they mentioned. So they need ijaza.
If one doubts whether he performed Istibura or not, what should he do?
In overall, when did he thought about it? Because we have, we have a qa'ida or the basis which is known as qa'atul faragh. Faragh means if you have finished something, done something, and you have left, then if you go back to this issue, let's say you have prayed, and when you finished your prayer, you had a doubt. Did I do the ruku' correctly or wrong? The qa'ida says, the basis says you have to just keep on going, just ignore it.
Yeah.
Just carry on your other things. So if he has done it and he's doubt about the correctness of this act, then of course he doesn't need to do anything, because the qa'at al-faragh would say that inshallah it's correctly done. So it depends really on the situation.
If transferred, this is from WhatsApp, if transferring a diseased Muslim to Muslim countries entails great difficulty, is it permissible to bury the body in the cemeteries of non-Muslims among the followers of the revered religions, that is the Ahl al-Kitab, the Jewish cemeteries and the Christian cemeteries?
It's not permissible. I mean, you need to have an ijazah. You have to find a way in which you can, even buy a separate piece of land, for example, somewhere, because the Muslim body should be buried in a Muslim cemetery, or likewise, and not a non-Muslim cemetery. You have to basically do something for it, or ask the ijazah from the marja, if they would allow. I'm not sure.
Question from YouTube, Sheikhna. Assalamu alaikum. What's the ruling on sinus medicine if it makes you lightheaded? If you have medicine, Sheikhna, which your doctor recommends, makes you feel a little bit lightheaded, is it Islamically allowed? Is it acceptable?
It depends. If it's part of the treatment, I mean, you have to go back to the experts with this regard, to the doctors. And if it's part of the treatment,
if you've been prescribed it, then
I mean, yeah, if it's needed, something that you need it could be allowed, because this is part of the treatment.
Another one from YouTube. Can a woman marry more than one man?
No, it's not permissible.
No. The only time she's allowed to remarry is when divorce or when husband has passed away, I believe. Sheikhna, if one is unmarried and is of intense sexual desires that he cannot fulfill, what are the means to drive away or diminish the craving of those desires?
If one feels that they might fall into the act of haram conduct, na'udhu billah, committing zina as a result, they can't control the desire,
masturbation,
and so forth, then it becomes obligatory and wajib to get married in this case. If they can't, due to social, financial issues and so forth, they have to fast in this case, because fasting would reduce that desire for this act. Yeah, fasting would be a second solution.
Fair enough. Sheikhna, what is the ruling of responding to the salam greeting conveyed by a third person, and what is the protocol for responding to such a salam?
It's preferred to say alayhi wa alaykum as-salam, so peace be upon him and you, because he's delivering the salam of somebody else. So it's good, prefer to say in this way.
Ahsant. I'm living in India and I have a lot of doubts about things I am using and I'm eating. What is my duty about such things according to His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani?
The Sayyid mentions that there's a ruling which is called everything is ritually tahir and pure unless you're certain that it is najis and impure. So the one should basically follow this ruling that everything is tahir unless you are certain, you have the evidence which says that this is impure and najis, then of course you have to avoid it. Otherwise, things are basically tahir and pure unless you're not sure about it. You have the evidence in this case to prevent from this najasa, be it food, clothing, flow, and so forth.
Sheikh, according to His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani, am I allowed to follow an Imam of Jama'ah if I'm not sure if he's adil or not?
The Sayyid mentions that you must make sure that he is just and adil. It says in the fiqh, ihrazu al-adala. You have to make sure that you fulfill and achieve the fact that he is adil. Unlike other Sunni madhahib in which you can just stand behind whoever is praying, even if he is, for example, doing ma'asi and sins. As long as he's leading the jama'ah, just pray behind him. We don't have such a thing at all. We have one of the shurut and conditions of the Imam Jama'ah to be just and adil. So you have to make sure that you achieve that through asking the musallin, for example, who pray behind him. And in overall, that he's adil, zahiran. You don't have to search through his let's say biography or history. Zahir al-adala should be fine. And also if you know him personally, then that should be fine.
Sheikh, what do our scholars say about sabr and patience?
In overall, the ulama divide the sabr and the patience into three categories. Number one, the patience or the sabr on obedience, الصبر على الطاعة, such as salah, fast, hajj, zakat. You know, sometimes it's a bit difficult for some people, you know, to fast 19 hours in the heat wave of the summer, for example. It's difficult for some to wake up in the middle of the night, you know, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, in the dawn time, fajr time, to pray salat al-subuh in the freezing weather, for example. So that needs a lot of sabr and patience. So one of the ways is to have the patience on the ta'ah, that you obey Allah Azza wa Jal by implementing and practicing His wajibat. That's by itself needs some kind of sabr and patience. The second type of patience and sabr is avoiding committing the sins. So al-sabru an al-ma'asiyah, to avoid the act of sins. And that's of course the most difficult duty and act, because it's hard for the one to leave ma'asi, you know, backbiting, slandering, looking at the opposite gender with lust, watching some movies, indecent scenes, photos, you know, all these, you know, temptation and attractions. It's difficult for the individual to prevent them. Maybe we get used to the salah and so becomes something of a habit, that I pray every day 5 times, I fast every Ramadan, for example, Shahr Ramadan, becomes some kind of habit. But to avoid the sins, to avoid the ghibah, to avoid looking at the opposite gender with haram looking, that's a bit difficult. Of course, the third and the final sabr and patience comes with handling and dealing with the calamities and anxieties and difficulties in hard and difficult times. The one should have some kind of sabr when it comes to the, God forbid, the musibah, the calamity in which we have faced, you know, for the past 2 years in pandemic. Many of the loved ones have passed away. So we have to have that sabr and patience when we face such a difficult times.
Sheikh, a question from one of our viewers, and that is, what are the ways to drive away the jinn in one's life? That's from WhatsApp. What are the ways to drive away the jinn in one's life?
Is to recite the qalaqil al-arba'a, قل يا أيها الكافرون, قل هو الله أحد, قل أعوذ برب الناس, and قل أعوذ برب الفلق. These 4, try to recite them every day before you leave the house, you leave for work. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect everyone from this issue.
Sheikh, we're going to go to a short break. Inshallah, join us after the break as we continue our discussion on Ahkam SOS. Welcome back to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. If you have any questions you'd like to send in, please send them in via the WhatsApp, the email address. Give us a call live in the studio, 0203-515-0199. Or if you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, please send in your questions in the comment section, and inshallah I'll be able to discuss them with Sheikh, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Sheikh, a question there from one of our viewers on WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.
I have savings from the past and I am making money and earning right now. But I do a niyyah that the money that I spend every time comes from my old savings just to avoid paying khums. Is this permissible?
Basically, if you have surplus money saved, left, unspent, and you have an annual khumus day, of course you have to pay khumus on whatever is excess, unused, unpaid, surplus. Khumus becomes wajib. So there's no way you can avoid it. I mean, unless you talk to your marja' rep to see what can be done.
Sheikh, what is the ruling for the one who lives next to a mosque? Is it mandatory for him to pray in that mosque?
In overall, salat in the mosque is mustahab and recommended. So the one should basically do their best to pray in the mosque.
Isn't there a ruling in like 40 houses in each direction?
Yeah, there's actually a hadith with this regard as well, that قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله لا صلاة لجار لمسجد إلا في مسجده. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said that the salah, and what we understand from this hadith, that the salah would be more rewardable More thawab if you pray inside the mosque, because you are the neighbor of the mosque, and it is makruh for the individual to perform at home when you have in your neighborhood a mosque and you are well fit, there's no medical issues, and you're in a good situation where you can go to that mosque and pray. So, except if there's other exceptional situations in which you can't go to the mosque, but in overall, the more rewarding, the more thawab would be for the one who prays inside the mosque rather than at home.
Sheikh, if a person goes to the moon, to which direction should he pray, according to His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani?
Yes, the Sayyid and the other Maraja would say that he should or she should pray towards the Earth planet. Basically, the Earth becomes his qibla or her qibla in this situation.
Fantastic. Sheikh, questions coming in from WhatsApp. Salaam. I sometimes doubt whether after urinating or before or even during sexual arousal, a liquid comes out of the urine. What's the ruling on this liquid? Is it tahir or does it invalidate my wudu?
No, that's tahir, and that is basically a pre-ejaculation process, which is tahir, as it means that the one has reached to the stage of desire. Arousal, exactly.
Sheikhna, where is Jabira applicable? I mean, how can one make sure that he must perform Jabira instead of washing a sore or a fractured bone?
When there's a bandage, for example, or plaster, that you have to have this bandage or plaster on that part of the wudu and you can't take it off, then of course the Jabira comes, in which you do the wudu with the intention of the wudu al-Jabira. So you would gently wipe on that plaster or bandage rather than just washing as usual, because you can't wash it.
Yeah.
So you just gently wipe on it and wash the rest of the part of the wudu.
Inshallah. Another question coming from the WhatsApp, I believe. If someone wants to speak to the opposite gender with the intention to have a halal relationship, maybe they're getting to know each other for to get married in the future, but before it gets to that, they want to get to know each other's through friendship, is this allowed? If not, what can be done?
You see, just in terms of knowing each other, just normal communication, that would be fine. But it shouldn't extend to friendship. To be friends, and you know what the means of being friends, they have to go through the aqd, nikah aqd. Without that, it's problematic. Because eventually they're going to exchange romantic words and love saying and so forth.
Compliments of grandeur.
Exactly. So they have to basically, from the first place, decide: shall we go further? If yes, do the aqd nikah. If not, then fi amanillah, and separate. So they can't just keep going without being halal to each other. That's the problem. So one should be careful with this regard.
Inshallah. Sheikh, now let's go to our Shia Plus video and inshallah help out Shabab.
سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وعلى محمد الله أكبر بحول الله. Oh no, I don't know if that was my first sajda or my second. What should I do?
The Sheikh, now young Yasser there, performing sujood, doesn't know it's his first one or his second one. In that situation, what do you do? How do you perform your salah?
If the doubt was in the mahal and the position of sujood, then the one needs to perform another sujood, another sajda. If there was shak in the sujood. But if this doubt or shak was in the coming rak'ah, the following rak'ah, say the third rak'ah for example, in which the one has passed the stage and the phase of sujood, now we have the tajawuz al-mahal, the one has passed the phase of the sujood, then the one should ignore his shak and doubt and carry on with the salah.
Fair enough. Sheikh, more questions coming in from YouTube. Assalamu alaikum. Can Muslims who rent a fully furnished house in the West consider everything in it to be ritually pure as long as he does not find any trace of impure things in it, even if the previous occupant was from a non-Muslim and kept a dog at home.
Yes, indeed. The ruling says that everything is tahir and pure unless you're certain that it is impure. Then you have to, of course, purify it.
Sheikh, but isn't that one of the rulings as well when on purifying things, is that when property becomes under a Muslim's hand? So if I was to purchase a house from let's say from Hindus and stuff, and they kept animals in there as well, as soon as I purchase it, they give me the keys. Everything there is all the pots and pans, the kitchen, worktop, everything is tahir, no?
Of course, it's tahir because you haven't seen the impurity or the najasa by yourself, or they haven't told you that we have done such and such on it.
Yeah.
So it remains tahir unless you're certain it's najis.
Very interesting question here, Sheikhna. Inshallah, I'll be able to help you as well with this answer. From YouTube, Sheikh, here in Pakistan, there is a lot of negativity about Ayatollah Shirazi, especially from a Sayyid, we're not going to mention his name, portrayed like MI6. What's your views? Sheikhna, there are those who do say, the best way to it, what's the word, like, they character assassinates or they de-character our Maraja. Sayyid Sadiq Shirazi is one who gets attacked left, right and centre. He's not the only one. There are plenty of Maraja out there who people say bad things about. Sheikh, how do we respond to these so-called false claims that people put up against our Maraja?
Well, by going back to the life of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we see that in the time of Imam Amir al-Mu'minin Ali alayhi salam, when he was killed in the Mosque of Kufa, he was struck on his head.
Mm-hmm.
And the news reached the people of Sham in Syria when Muawiyah was leading that part in Sham. The people of Sham said that, did Ali prayed at all? Because they thought that Ali never prayed. He wasn't kada kada ala kulli hal. All accusations by Muawiyah. So we have to make sure that to repel and remove and eradicate the legacy of Muawiyah with this regard today, which is penetrating towards the Shia as well. We have to remove this kind of mentality in which Muawiyah and his, those who followed the Muawiyah as well, established. So we try to follow Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, in which they have taught us how to respect our brothers. If we want to unite with the Ahlul Sunnah, we have to first unite with Ahlul Shia first.
Yes.
Shia must initially unite with the other Shia before uniting with others. Otherwise, we cannot gain victory at all by dividing from inside.
I think also with His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq Shirazi, for viewers out there, is try and read his works. There's so many beautiful works by our Grand Marja and different books that he's written with Islamic law. Even his brother, Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi Rahmatullah Alayh, has so many different books on history, on Quran, on tafsir, and really, really commendable and really, really great efforts been put in order to pushing to push the religion and the message of the Ahlul Bayt. And I think once you start reading and looking at the amount of effort that our Maraja have put in, it really puts things into perspective, and you really start to really understand how great these people are. Sheikhna, in the West, there are many public laundry places in which Muslims and non-Muslims wash their clothes. Is it permissible for us to pray in the clothes washed in such facilities, especially when we have no knowledge whether or not the washing machines are connected to cold water or some stage of the washing, and whether or not it purifies the clothes from the process of washing?
Again, everything is tahir and pure unless you are certain that it's najis. If you have not seen the impurity and najasa inside these appliances, then of course it's tahir, even if it's in the public, because the ruling says kullu shayin laka tahir, everything is tahir, unless you're sure that it's najis and impure. So you can apply this ruling and use the public washing machines and even tumble dryers as well, because you haven't seen the najasa yourself, even if those who are using that are not Muslims.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. Now, thank you to all of you for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. If we didn't read out your question, we do apologize, because we do get a lot of questions coming through. And inshallah, we'll be able to read your question on Wednesday's episode, 6:30, here on Imam Hussein TV 3. Until then, take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.